Hello, friends. This past weekend was the NASCAR Championship weekend in Phoenix. Now, many of you know I'm a huge motorsports fan. I love drag racing. I love NASCAR, a little bit of F1 and Indy. I love automotive in general. Like my favorite show on YouTube is Vice Grip Garage, where he repairs old clunkers and drives them home. I just love cars. They're like puzzles that do things, and I've loved them since I was a little kid. I went to the Daytona 500, I think, in 1985. There's something about that smell of castrol and rubber and the noise of V8s going around that just speaks to me. But many of you may not know, I was a racer, but I was not a car racer. I was not a motorsports racer. I was a swim racer. And the thing about racing is, I feel like, yeah, you can cheer for your guy or your team, but when you're looking at somebody who is just dominating a race, you're like, that's the winner. That's the guy. That's the guy who should win this race, or that's the girl who should win this race, because you're a fan of the sport. You're not just a fan of that guy or that racer. You're like, no, like I want the best person, the most meritocratic person to win the race, because you don't want the slow guy to win. You want the fast guy to win. You want the guy who's the best. And I think that's why a lot of fans are kind of feeling dissatisfied with how NASCAR, has been crowning their champions in the playoff era. The playoff era, I think, has had a lot of controversy because there have been years where you're like, the guy who was dominant all year didn't get the championship. The guy who the people, the fans, were like, yeah, that was the number one dude all year long in NASCAR, but somebody else was crowned the champion. It just rings hollow. It doesn't feel right. And I watch a lot of podcasts when I work. I'll work on the computer. I got the podcast going on the TV, so I'll watch Kevin Harvick's Harvick Happy Pod. I'll watch Dale Jr. Download, Break Hard, Out of the Groove, Kenny Wallace. Like I watch a fair number of NASCAR YouTube channels and shows and get lots of information. And I feel like the common theme is, yes, based on the system, the correct champions were crowned. But I think everybody's feeling that the system is flawed because it's not crowning the dominant driver for the year. It's not crowning the consistency for the year. But let's get into it a little bit more. Like with the Craftsman Truck Series, Corey Heim was the storyline the entire season. The kid was dominating, absolutely phenomenal driving. Every race I tuned into for Craftsman Trucks, I swear Corey Heim was out in front by a significant chunk, especially on road courses. And I mean, the kid was just dominant. And if he wasn't the one leading, it was like, all right, how soon is Corey Heim going to overtake the guy? It was, he was always in the mix. Tons of top fives. He was the dominant driver all year. And I think he end with 10 or I think maybe 11 wins on the season. Just fun to watch him win. I mean, the guy is a great driver. And that final race at Phoenix this weekend, he had to go 7 wide across the apron to actually make it and win the race and win the champion. And I definitely think that if for some reason he did not win that championship, the fans of the Craftsman Truck Series would be up in arms, because there is no question Corey Heim was the dominant driver the whole year and he should have been crowned the champion. There was no question. And on Kevin Harvick's podcast, I think it was him, Mamba Smith, and Caitlin were talking about how if Corey Heim and Connor Zilisch aren't crowned champions this weekend, that the fans are going to revolt. And we were very lucky that Corey Heim came across the apron to win at Phoenix and get that championship, because he was 100% the person who deserved to be crowned champion in the Craftsman Truck Series this year. Now we're going to jump to the Xfinity Series. And I think both the Xfinity Series and the Cup Series are where people are just looking at who was crowned champion and going, yes, they're legitimately, based on the rules, they won. But we're all dissatisfied. Because all year long in Xfinity, we were watching Connor Zillage. And Connor Zillage is he's just turned 19. He's an absolute phenom. And he was dominating. He had 10 wins on the season. He had 18 top 5 finishes in a row. And breaking records left and right. When Shane Van Gisbergen went into the Xfinity Series to do Sonoma, it was literally the Connor Zillage SVG show. The rest of the field didn't matter. We were watching these two dominant road course drivers just battling the whole race, and Connor won. It was amazing. I mean, just a phenomenal race. And this is why everybody, I think, is looking at the way that the championship playoff is formatted. Again, it's a format. It has nothing to do with the drivers. Jesse Love did great all season. He just had one win at the beginning and one win at the end and a bunch of top 5s in the middle. And that's why I think people are like, yeah, you're a darn good driver, dude. And you won the races you needed to win in this format. Not your fault that we all look at this format as not really crowning the champion, but crowning the guy who was kind of there at the end. And again, I feel like the format is what people are mad at, not the players. It's like kind of NASCAR, you created a system that doesn't crown the guy who deserves it. You crown the guy who, made it to the end, but doesn't necessarily deserve it. I hope that distinction makes sense. Because, again, Jesse Love, you did a great job in that race. You really did. And I don't want to take anything away from you, but I just think that the fans are dissatisfied when the guy who's the dominant driver the entire season has all of his points erased and reset to go into this final round of winner take all that basically is a one race season. It's like, yep, everything else doesn't matter, just this one race. It's like, okay, great. So the 10 wins, 18 in a row top 5s, and all the stage wins and everything just disappear, and all that matters is this single race to crown the champion. Again, I think people are dissatisfied with that because you don't feel like the dominant, the best driver for the year was crowned. And then we get to Cup, and I feel like we have that same issue. Denny Hamlin, 6 wins. He was the storyline. Will he finally get his championship? He was who the fans, the podcasts, I mean, how many times Dale Jr. download, door bumper clear, you name it. I've watched all these podcasts, and it was talking about Denny's win, Denny's seeking the championship, his amazing performances. Denny had an amazing year. Same thing, Chase Briscoe. I was cheering for Chase Briscoe in so many races because he was doing so well. And you're like, you know what? That's the guy who should win today because he was doing so well. There are other races where Christopher Bell was doing so well. And so, again, I'm one of those weird NASCAR fans that I don't have a single drive. I'm not a Denny bro. I'm not a Kyle Larson guy. I'm not a Kyle Busch guy. I like all of them. When Kyle Busch was leading a few weeks ago, I was cheering for Kyle Busch because a Kyle Busch win is good for the entire sport of NASCAR. Believe me, it's good for the entire sport of NASCAR because Kyle Busch is a name that non-NASCAR people remember. Like my friends who don't know anything about NASCAR know Kyle Busch's name. And so when Kyle Busch can win still, that is good for NASCAR. And so I was cheering for him in that race. I was cheering for Denny on Sunday because him getting that championship is the ultimate storyline. Plus, he had an absolute dominant performance at Phoenix. He was leading most of the race. Well, got stage wins. William Byron was doing awesome too. He had a fast car. So I think the 2 fastest cars on the track on Sunday, sorry, not yesterday, but Sunday, were Denny Hamlin's Toyota and William Byron's Chevy. And I feel like those were the two cars to watch. And then Kyle Larson, he was struggling. Chase Briscoe, he was struggling. Both of them had flat tires, had to overcome adversity, and prove themselves to be really true championship caliber racers. But I just feel like when you reset everything going into a final winner take all race, you erase the whole season. You erase the merit of 6 wins, all the stage points, all that effort from the whole team for the whole year. And it comes down to William Byron having a blowout with 3 laps to go when Denny Hamlin was leading by over 3 seconds. If William Byron's blowout happened in a different place on the track, if he was able to get to the pit road instead of hitting the wall, Denny Hamlin would be your champion right now. But because that tire blowout happened in such a spot that William Byron went into the wall and a caution had to be called, 3 laps left. Denny Hamlin was leading the field by over 3 seconds at the time. Everybody watching that race emotionally was committed to, wow, Denny Hamlin is finally getting his championship. Denny Hamlin is getting his 61st win. He's going to stop being tied with Kevin Harvick at 60, and he's going to be between Kevin Harvick and Kyle Busch at 61. And then the blowout happened, and it's just like, oh my God, was that deflating. Again, I was cheering for Chase Briscoe in certain races. I was cheering for William Byron in certain races, cheering for Kyle Larson in other races. And so I didn't have one horse that I was cheering for. I'm more of a general fan of the sport, and I want it to be done well. And maybe that's the difference between me and other drivers, or sorry, other fans, is that I don't have a specific driver that I'm cheering for. I'm cheering for good racing. Like on road courses, I'm watching Shane Van Gisbergen give a freaking clinic on how to do road courses, to the point where all the other Cup drivers have to raise their game. That's why Connor Zillage coming into Cup next year is actually going to be really interesting, because now we're going to have a second road course specialist who can compete with SVG at that level and make it so maybe SVG doesn't get 6 road course wins. This is, I like good racing, and if this guy's doing well today, I'm probably going to cheer for that guy. If that guy's doing well today, I'm probably cheering for that guy. I want good racing overall. I don't necessarily have, as I said, one horse that I'm cheering for. But this is also why I think that the playoff system needs to change. But I want to show you something, because I think this is interesting, because I do think NASCAR is working on a new system. Will it be the old Winston Cup system like this, where it's a purely points-based system, 36 race, no playoff format? Like Christopher Bell would have been crowned the champion in this system just based on his consistency of top 10 finishes, I think. And so, but I feel like that would have been dissatisfying too, because he only had 4 victories. And they were the first 3 races of the year. And so I feel like, again, people were, 3 of his 4 victories were the first 3 races of the year. But, people want the merit-based system, but I think they also want the excitement of the playoffs. I think they like the cutoffs. I think they like the field diminishing each round. I think that actually works to add for TV drama and storylines and crowning a champion. So I think there's a way to do it where you keep the 36 race point system for the champion, but at the 26th race, the top 16 go into the playoffs and the points jump up. I actually worked with Grok for a couple of days perfecting what I call the 4-3-3 format. And you have the first round, the round of 16 with 4 races. And then when you cut down to 8 for the second round, that's 3 races. And then you cut down to 4 for the final round, that's also 3 races. And you get a nice 3-race final round to crown the champion, where it's not a winner take all because you have 3 races. You don't feel like you're not crowning the most meritocratic, however you want to say it, victor. You need it shouldn't feel like a fluke is what I'm saying. It shouldn't feel like, wow, that guy had one lucky race and he beat the guy who was dominant all year. If you go back to 2020, and I actually did this, so in my analysis I actually went back to all the years that had the stage points, so that's 2017 to 2025, and I had Grok run through and evaluate using my upgraded point system who would win. And 89% of the time, it would be the dominant driver for the year because you actually reward the victories. You reward the longevity and the consistency more than the current system that erases all the points for the season. So depending on how much, because in my system, you ramp up points in the playoffs. And I even have it so you, from the first round, the round of 16 to the round of 8, you have another ramp up in there. And so depending on how much you ramp up the points in the playoffs, you either crown Denny Hamlin the champion this year or you crown Kyle Larson. So depending on your ramp up, you have, the potential for an underdog to actually still win it. You don't want a system that is such a power protect that there is no possibility for that underdog coming through and having a great playoff run. You still want the possibility for that, underdog, Cinderella story. It's like the NCAA tournament where the super low seed comes and wins for some reason. That is a great storyline that we would want to have possible, but it has to be somebody making an amazing run, not just, hey, I had one good race. So in my system, hey, let me know if you want me to run through my system and show you what I did, because I know NASCAR is working on it. I think the big change that I would make is the win and you're in. I think you make it a purely point system to get into the playoff part of the season. If you have the win and you're in, you have the guy that wins the first race of the season and he can sit back until about the last quarter of the year and then start ramping up to try to get into playoff contention or a playoff condition, like get the team working together like a playoff team. I think the win and you're in is an issue. I think the points reset is the issue. And if you eliminate the win and you're in and the points reset and then add a point ramp where the points go up in the final 10 races of the season, to make it so that that underdog, that number 16 seed can have a chance to point their way forward and beat the number 1 seed. I think that's why you need the ramp up in the points in the playoffs, is to make it so that an underdog has a chance. But I do want a system that rewards the longevity of the season. It's a 36 race season, and if you erase 26 of those races, once you get into the playoffs, like, what's the point? All I have to do is win one race, I'm in the playoffs. And I think that's the issue. I think that's why the fans are dissatisfied. We don't want to take away from Kyle Larson or Connor Zilisch because Kyle Larson or Jesse Love, because we like Connor Zilisch and Denny Hamlin because they had amazing seasons. We want to reward Connor Zilisch and Denny Hamlin for how good a season they had. We just don't want to I feel like the system that they tried to create it where everything's fair for everybody is not actually fair for those teams that dominated the whole season. It's more like a Harrison Bergeron effect where, no, you're putting giant chains on the victors in order to benefit the guys who have fewer victories. So, hopefully that makes sense. Let me know what you think. Let me know if you want me to run through my 4-3-3 format. As I said, Grok and I worked on it. We went through a bunch of different variations. I even, wanted to poke holes in my system, so I tried to get counter examples and things like that. But a system that allows, let's go to 2020 and Kevin Harvick. He had 9 wins. It was a shortened season because of COVID, but he had 9 wins and he didn't win the championship. And Chase Elliott, who had 0 wins, won the championship. How does that make sense? Chase Elliott's a great driver, but with 0 wins versus 9 wins, we erased those wins from Kevin Harvick. Kevin Harvick should have won. In my system last year, Kyle Larson would have won. So it's just one of those where I don't feel like the current system, where we get to that final round, winner take all, and the points reset, is fair to the teams who put in the work for the whole season and gotten all those victories, gotten all those stage points, gotten all those stage wins. And so if we create a system that is a hybrid of the old Winston Cup system and the new point playoff system, but keeps the merit in and gets rid of the win in your end, because if you win, you get more points than the other guy. So the victory, the win alone, is giving you more points in my system. So I don't know. Let me know what you think. I'm hoping that you're a big of a race fan as I am. And comment below what you think the best format is. Do you like the current playoff system? Do you want to go back to the old Winston Cup system where it's 36 points and Christopher Bell would have won this year and last year? Christopher Bell's a great driver, but did he deserve the championship this year? That's a tough call, because Denny Hamlin was so dominant in so many races. And you can see, he's got 6 wins. That's 5 places. I can't, it's too small for me to read. Let me see if I can zoom in. So yeah, it's 5 poles, 6 victories, 5 poles, 14 top 5, 18 top 10s. The only category that Christopher Bell beat him in was top 10s. And so, again, this is one of those where the old Winston Cup Series definitely benefited consistency. But I do feel like Denny Hamlin, because of his victories, his poles, his stage wins, his stage points. Remember, this old Winston Cup system doesn't have any stage points, doesn't have stage wins in it. So that's why I feel like it's not really an apples to apples comparison to what we do now. But if we could have a hybrid of the old Winston Cup system and the new modern playoff system with stage points, I think you could get to a real meritocratic system that has a playoff that's fun and exciting and gets all the TV drama and the storylines that the TV people want, but gives the fans the champion that was dominant for 36 races. Let me know what you think. Comment below. Maybe you've got a better idea. Let me know. And then also let me know if you want me to run through my 4-3-3 format that Grok and I have been working on for a few days. All right. Talk to you soon.